I want to talk about Bernie Wrightson. He's been called the master of the macabre. He's been influenced by the classic horror films, the black and white Universal films, and EC comic books of the 1950s. You probably will know Bernie Wrightson best from a comic book that he created with the fine writer Len Wein called Swamp Thing, which is one of the great myth images in comic books today. This is a man whose work is filled with demons and monsters and ghouls and aliens and werewolves. And in black and white, he has illustrated the works of Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft. He did two projects with Stephen King. One of them was a comic adaptation of George Romero's film Creepshow, and the other is a book called Cycle of the Werewolf, which you may have seen as a movie called Silver Bullet. But Bernie's most important work was his interpretation of Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley's Frankenstein, in which he visualized the monster using only the novel.
Essentially what I was trying to do with the illustrations in Frankenstein was I was trying to limit myself to the techniques that were in use at the time that the book was originally written, say around the beginning of the 19th century, which would have been steel engravings or woodcuts. I was trying to pinpoint an archetype, trying to put myself into the mind of Mary Shelley, maybe more into her time, of what would have been frightening to someone in Mary Shelley's time. I think painting is probably a more natural way of reproducing an image on a two-dimensional surface, whereas working in line just goes completely against all the rules. I mean, my hand exists in space as form and tone and color and bulk. It doesn't have a black line around it. It doesn't have little lines cross-hatched across it to make this side darker than that side. So working in line, working in black and white is much more of an abstraction than working in color, than painting. As far as being a picture maker or an image maker, what always comes first is a picture in my mind. I always see something very definitely inside. I always see it exactly the way I draw it. And the finished product is almost always like I had an opaque projector that was in my head, projecting out through my eyes on the paper, and all I do is trace the picture that I see. When the Batman made an appearance in the Swamp Thing series, that was an awful lot of fun for me, because I had been wanting to do Batman for quite a long time, but I didn't want to do Batman in his own book, in his own story, and this was perfect for me, because now Batman could be a guest star in my book, and I felt that since he was just a guest in my little universe, I had total control over him. I could do anything with him that I wanted. So I decided to make his ears 2 feet long, and to make his cape 30 feet long in certain shots where it just looked good to have this huge tent of a cape blowing in the wind. And nobody argued with me, you know, because it was my interpretation. It was the Swamp Thing lived in his own little universe, his own kind of alternate universe, and the Batman comes in, and it's like walking through a distorting mirror or something, and Batman had to bend to the rules of this universe, and suddenly become, you know, this very, you know, kind of twisted, monstrous thing. Horror is different things to different people, I think. to me, in spite of my drawings of monsters and the creeping dead crawling out of their graves and vampires and Frankenstein's monster and whatnot, horror to me is an image of a well-dressed man standing on a corner waiting for a bus, and everything about him is absolutely perfect except there's a spot of blood on his shoe.